Lucas had always lived a simple life in a small Texas town where people knew each other by name and stories spread faster than the wind. His workshop sat at the corner of an old street, surrounded by rusted road signs and faded buildings. Every morning he would roll up the metal shutter, breathe in the scent of oil and metal, and remind himself that kindness didn't cost a thing. Though money was always short and bills piled up on his kitchen table, he never turned away anyone who needed help, whether it was a broken engine or a broken spirit. His father had taught him that repairing things wasn't just a job, it was a way to bring someone hope. Lucas believed that deeply, even when his own life was filled with struggles. Some days he skipped breakfast just to make sure he had enough to buy parts for a customer who couldn't afford them. The town respected him, but respect didn't pay rent. Still, he pushed through each day, finding comfort in the sound of turning wrenches and engines springing back to life under his hands. One rainy afternoon, the workshop was unusually quiet. Lucas wiped his hands on an old cloth and sat down on a metal stool, feeling the exhaustion of endless days. Just then, the door creaked open. A young woman stepped in, drenched, limping heavily on one side. Her face was pale, her eyes tired yet full of determination. She introduced herself as Mia and apologized for disturbing him. Her prosthetic leg had been giving her severe pain, and she had visited several places, but repairs were too expensive for her current situation. Lucas's heart softened immediately. He noticed the cracked carbon shell, the loose hinge, and the damaged rubber padding. It wasn't an easy job, and the parts were not cheap. But when Mia hesitantly asked how much it would cost, clearly worried, Lucas didn't think twice. He simply said, "Don't worry about the money. Sit down. I'll fix it." There was a brief silence, followed by a sigh of relief as she lowered herself on a wooden chair, trying to hide the tears forming in her eyes. Mia explained that she had struggled for months because her leg made walking painful and unstable. Every step felt like stepping on broken glass. She told Lucas that she used to work on tech projects but had lost her job because she couldn't move around properly. Her savings had nearly run out, and she couldn't afford medical repair. Lucas listened quietly, his hands already gathering tools. He didn't ask for details or reasons. Helping her was enough reason for him. He placed the prosthetic leg on his workbench and studied it like a puzzle waiting to be solved. The damage was complicated, but Lucas never backed down from a challenge. He tightened screws, replaced metal joints from spare parts he had saved over the years, and carefully sanded down worn edges. As he worked, the storm outside grew louder, but inside the workshop there was only the steady rhythm of his tools, and Mia watching him with hope slowly returning to her eyes. An hour turned into 2. Lucas kept adjusting the balance, checking the alignment twice, making sure every component worked smoothly. He wiped sweat from his forehead and crouched to test the leg's movement manually. Finally, after more effort than he had expected, he straightened up and held out the repaired prosthetic. "Try standing," he said gently. Mia looked nervous but trusted him. She attached the leg, took a deep breath, and slowly rose from the chair. Her first step was cautious, but it didn't hurt. Her second step was steady. By the fourth step, she looked up with tears streaming down her face. She couldn't believe the difference. For the first time in months, she felt stability beneath her feet. She took another step, then another, walking across the workshop with growing confidence. Lucas watched quietly, feeling a warmth in his chest. Moments like this reminded him why he never gave up. When Mia asked how much she owed him, Lucas shook his head. "Nothing. You needed help. That's all that matters." She insisted, but he stayed firm. Helping her wasn't a transaction. It was humanity. Mia stood there speechless, overwhelmed by gratitude she didn't know how to express. She finally told him that she wanted to repay him someday, but Lucas simply smiled and said that the best repayment was to keep moving forward. She nodded, still emotional, and promised she would never forget what he had done. As she stepped outside into the rain, her steps were slow but confident, something she hadn't felt in a long time. She looked back once more at the dimly lit workshop, silently thanking the man who had given her a new chance. Lucas returned to his stool when she left, feeling tired but content. He didn't know her life story or what the future held for her, but he was glad he had made her day a little better. He didn't realize that this small act of kindness would someday change his own life in ways he never imagined. To him, it was just another day of helping someone in need. But fate had already begun working quietly, weaving a connection between two strangers whose lives were about to transform forever. Mia left Lucas's workshop with renewed hope, unaware that her life was about to shift in a direction she never expected. For months she had struggled physically and emotionally, unable to finish the project that once meant everything to her. But now, with her repaired leg allowing her to walk confidently again, she returned to her small apartment and opened her laptop. The screen lit up with a project folder she hadn't touched in weeks. Her disability assistance app. She stared at it for a long moment before whispering, "This time I won't give up." Lucas's kindness gave her strength. Over the next few days, she poured every ounce of energy into completing the app. She worked through long nights, fueled by determination and the memory of the man who helped her without expecting anything. She refined the user interface, added new features, and perfected the AI support system. The app was designed to connect disabled individuals with free medical resources, low-cost equipment, and community support groups. Mia knew the world needed it because she knew what it felt like when help wasn't easy to find. Her purpose became clearer with every line of code she wrote. A week passed before she finally hit the launch button. The app went live quietly at first, gathering only a few downloads in the initial hours. But then something unexpected happened. One user tweeted about how helpful the app was, and within minutes the post exploded with attention. Downloads jumped from hundreds to thousands in a single day. People began sharing stories of how the app guided them to clinics, support organizations, and repair centers. Mia watched the numbers rise, tears blurring her vision as she realized her creation was actually helping people. Soon after, a popular news channel covered her story. They highlighted how the app gave hope to thousands and how it was created by a young woman who had once struggled with mobility herself. Investors reached out, offering partnerships and financial backing. Within 2 weeks, her user count crossed 1 million. Mia's inbox overflowed with interview requests. For the first time in her life, she had more opportunities than she could manage. With every new milestone, she thought of Lucas, the humble mechanic who unknowingly sparked this success. By the end of the month, she had earned more money than she ever imagined. She became a millionaire, not because she chased wealth, but because her passion aligned perfectly with people's needs. But despite her rising fame, she felt something unfinished inside her heart. She owed her breakthrough to one person, someone the world didn't know, someone who had given her more than any investor ever could. She couldn't ignore the feeling. One morning, she shut her laptop, grabbed her car keys, and decided it was time to return to Texas. The drive back felt surreal. She replayed the moment Lucas repaired her leg over and over again. No one had ever shown her that level of kindness before. She wondered what he would say when he saw her again. Would he even remember her? Images of him working silently with concentration filled her mind. She smiled, imagining his humble reaction when she told him how his simple generosity had changed everything. The journey felt like closing a circle, a return to the place where her new life began. When she arrived at Lucas's workshop, nothing had changed. The same rusted sign, the same dusty windows, the same sound of tools clinking inside. She stepped forward slowly, her heart pounding. Through the doorway, she saw Lucas bent under the hood of an old truck, grease on his hands, working with the same quiet focus, she remembered. For a moment, she just watched, overwhelmed by gratitude and emotion. This little shop had given her more than technology, money, or success. It had given her a second chance at life. Lucas looked up when he heard footsteps and froze when he recognized her. She wasn't limping anymore. She stood tall, confident, glowing with a different kind of energy. Before he could speak, she rushed forward and hugged him tightly. Lucas, startled, wiped his hands awkwardly on his shirt and asked if everything was okay. She stepped back, tears in her eyes, and said, "You fixed more than my leg. You helped me finish something that changed thousands of lives." Lucas blinked, stunned, unsure how to respond to her emotional confession. Then Mia told him everything about the app, the downloads, the success, the investors, and the impact it was making across the country. Lucas listened with wide eyes, overwhelmed by the idea that a simple repair he did for free had played such a crucial role. He didn't know what to say. For years, he had lived quietly, feeling like his work barely mattered in the grand scheme of the world. Hearing that his kindness inspired a nationwide change left him speechless. Mia smiled softly, knowing he would never fully grasp how important he was. But she wasn't done. She told him she had come not just to thank him, but to repay him in a way that honored his heart. Lucas shook his head immediately, insisting he didn't need anything, but Mia looked at him with steady determination, the same determination she had used to rebuild her life. "Lucas," she said, "you gave me hope when I had nothing. Now I want to give you something that will change your life the way you changed mine." Lucas opened his mouth to refuse again, but the sincerity in her voice made him pause. She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. Inside were documents for the purchase of a brand new auto workshop, modern, spacious, fully equipped, and registered in Lucas's name. Lucas stared at the papers, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. Tears filled his eyes as he whispered, "Why would you do this for me?" Mia placed a hand on his shoulder and replied, "Because sometimes the smallest kindness becomes the biggest blessing. You were mine. Now let me be yours." Lucas lowered his head, overcome by emotion, knowing his life had just changed forever. Lucas struggled to believe what he was seeing, a brand new workshop, complete with modern tools, machines, and technology, all for him. He ran his fingers over the glossy counters and heavy-duty lifts, feeling a mix of disbelief and gratitude. His hands, used to grease-stained tools and rusted benches, trembled slightly. Mia watched silently, her eyes glistening, waiting for him to speak. For the first time, Lucas realized that a simple act of kindness could truly ripple outward, transforming lives in ways one could never imagine. He swallowed hard, unable to find the right words for the overwhelming emotions coursing through him. Mia smiled softly, sensing his struggle. "I also want you to be part of something bigger," she continued. "I'm expanding my mobility aid project nationwide, and I need someone who understands hands-on repair, someone with heart." Lucas's brow furrowed in confusion. She handed him another set of papers, documents for a 50% partnership in her new division. Lucas looked at them, stunned, realizing the magnitude of her gesture. She wasn't just giving him a workshop, she was inviting him to be a co-creator in a movement, helping thousands of people with disabilities. It felt unreal. Lucas sank onto a stool, his mind racing. He had spent years tinkering in a small shop, never dreaming his work could lead to this. He remembered every late night, every skipped meal, every moment he chose to help someone despite his own struggles. All those moments had built this very reality, yet he had never expected recognition or reward. Now, suddenly, the world seemed to have acknowledged not just his skill, but his heart. Lucas laughed softly, shaking his head, a tear sliding down his cheek. I don't know what to say," he murmured. Mia placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to say anything," she said. Just continue doing what you do best, fixing lives, one step at a time. She led him through the workshop, showing him the high-tech equipment and the plans for community workshops and repair centers. Lucas marveled at it all. Machines he had only dreamed of using were now at his fingertips. The potential to help people far beyond his small town was now real, and he felt a sense of purpose unlike anything he had ever experienced. Word of Lucas's transformation spread quickly throughout the town. People who once knew him as the humble, struggling mechanic now saw him as a local hero. Reporters arrived to cover the story of the man whose selfless act had inspired a nationwide movement. Interviews, photographs, and news segments flooded in, but Lucas remained modest, always, directing attention to Mia and the people they were helping. He continued working with the same dedication as before, yet now he had resources, support, and recognition, allowing him to expand his efforts far beyond what he had imagined possible. The first community workshop was held in the town square, with Lucas demonstrating wheelchair repairs and mobility techniques to a crowd eager to learn. Mia stood beside him, explaining the app and its resources. Children, adults, and seniors gathered, many with their own disabilities, all inspired by Lucas's story. He taught, guided, and encouraged everyone with patience and care. People watched in awe as he transformed worn-out wheelchairs into functional devices, smiling as he encouraged users to stand or move freely. Each success reminded him of that rainy day when he helped Mia, the moment that had started this remarkable journey. Lucas and Mia spent weeks traveling across Texas, launching similar workshops in other towns. They partnered with hospitals, community centers, and schools to ensure that people with mobility challenges had access to the tools, knowledge, and assistance they needed. Lucas's hands, once limited to fixing engines and small items, were now repairing lives on a much larger scale. Meanwhile, Mia focused on expanding the app, integrating real-time support, and nationwide databases of repair centers. Their teamwork, built on trust and mutual respect, grew stronger with each project, creating a force that combined technology with hands-on care. One evening, after a long day at a newly opened center in Dallas, Lucas and Mia sat on the steps outside, watching the sunset. Lucas leaned back, exhausted but fulfilled, and whispered, "I never imagined life could be like this. All I did was help someone, and now—" His voice trailed off. Mia smiled, finishing his thought. "And now you're changing the world." He chuckled softly, shaking his head. "It feels unreal." They both sat in silence for a moment, reflecting on how one simple act, fixing a prosthetic leg, had grown into a nationwide movement, transforming countless lives in ways neither could have imagined. Months passed, and Lucas's workshop and Mia's app became staples in communities across the state. People sent letters, videos, and messages of gratitude, sharing stories of independence regained, confidence restored, and hope renewed. Lucas kept a small scrapbook in his office, filled with photographs of smiling faces and repaired wheelchairs. He occasionally glanced at the first photo of Mia walking confidently in his workshop, remembering how it all began. That rainy afternoon, a simple act of kindness had created a ripple, turning a poor mechanic's life into one of purpose, recognition, and fulfillment beyond imagination. As they prepared for a nationwide launch of their mobility initiative, Lucas paused and looked at Mia. "You gave me a gift I never expected," he said softly. "Not just the workshop or the partnership, but the chance to make a real difference." Mia smiled, tears glistening. "You gave me that chance first," she replied. "We just paid it forward." Lucas nodded, understanding fully. Every step they took, every wheelchair repaired, every life touched, was a continuation of that single moment in his small Texas workshop. a moment that had changed everything forever. The story of Lucas and Mia became an inspiration, told in interviews, newspapers, and social media. Yet for Lucas, it wasn't about fame or wealth. It was about the lives touched, the people helped, and the realization that a small act of compassion could ignite profound change. He, AC, continued to work tirelessly, now with the tools, resources, and partnership he had never dreamed of. Mia's app reached millions, empowering people across the country. And through it all, Lucas remembered the simplicity of that first day, repairing a leg, giving hope, and setting into motion a story of kindness, generosity, and transformation that would last a lifetime.